All right, today we've got a 1998 Pajero IO, and this thing has a very peculiar problem. It's eating ignition coils. So if you look at that, you can see it's popped open, and that's also popped open. And there are two more ignition coils under the intake, which we are going to look at. But this is what it's doing. Now, the backstory on this is an out-of-town job. It is a 550 kilometer round trip, so it takes me 6.5 hours on the road, and I need to get this right. I do not want to come here a second time because of this. This lady said that her brother told her that the ignition coils kept on burning, and she did tell me this a while back, but in my head I was thinking that used coils, maybe they're just using coils that are almost on the way out and they're going out. What I did not know is that they were popping like this. So this is completely burnt. The only thing that can cause ignition coils to burn like this without popping a fuse is that we are commanding them on and holding them on. Too much on time. So I want to first get into this intake and change the coils out. First of all, we'll remove it and see the condition of the other coils. Then we're going to change them out. For now, I'm going to change them out with used coils because I don't want to waste money on new coils. And then we're going to go on the wiring diagram and get a strategy of monitoring the voltage and current that these coils are taking. Then we'll go on a test drive with the owner of the car until it does this. Yesterday, she said she drove it for 20 minutes before it popped the coil. So that's what we're going to do. Let's first open the intake and look at the other coils. All right, I've removed the intake plenum on the top, and these two appear to be the ones that have been affected. Although, when I asked her to call the brother, he said they kept doing it at random, but he doesn't quite remember if it was one, but he doesn't recall it being only one, because he said there's one time that 3 went out on a row. So right now we've got the first and second that have popped. This is a used coil, and that's just paint. I'm not feeling any bumps on these other ones. But what we're going to do, I have 4 sets of used coils. We're going to replace these with known used coils for now. Then we'll go to the wiring diagram. Before we put the plenum back, I want to get the control for, actually, I don't even have to go to the wiring diagram. I can see here we have got, on these coils, it's labeled the power feed and the control and ground, but we'll go to the wiring diagram anyway. I want to see if there's anything unusual in the wiring diagram. And then we're going to come and scope these coils, then go on a test drive and see what they do. We are in the wiring diagram. We're going to come here to System Schematics, Ignition. And over here we see that we get our common power supply for all the coils. Comes from the ignition switch, IG1, comes through a junction block. And also we have in line here a noise suppressing capacitor. And on the coils we have got a common ground feed from all the coils. So that's here, 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 and here. They all go to ground location number 10. And then we have individual control lines coming from each coil to the engine control computer. So what I'm going to do is to take 4 channels. Channel 1, 2, and 3, I'm going to put the control for coil 1, 2, and 3. And then on channel 4, I'm going to take the current clamp, and I'm going to put a current clamp around this wire right here. And that way I'll see all the ignition coils fire, and I should see the current they're consuming as they do that. All right, let's go and deploy our Pico. All right, we have connected 3 channels here. Channel 1, ignition coil number 1 control. Channel 2, ignition coil number 2 control. Channel 3, ignition coil number 3 control. And since I have only 4 channels, I cannot view the control line from this. But right here, we have got all ignition coil power supply coming from here, and I'm taking the current on that, and I'll put that on channel 4. That way, with the current and the control, we'll be able to see what current is being consumed by the coils and what kind of control we have. Now, you may wonder, why aren't we worried about the powers and grounds? Well, simple. We are popping these coils. We can't pop these coils without good power and good ground, because you need the power and the ground to fully go through this coil unchecked for it to pop the coil like popcorn. We are not dealing with a power ground issue, I can guarantee you that. We are dealing with a control issue. So let's go to the picoscope and see what's going to happen there. And by the way, you need to be very careful about your leads. Keep them away from the exhaust. This is the exhaust plenum here, and it's very easy to burn these leads, and pico leads are not cheap, so protect your leads as much as possible. So let me put the plenum back. Let's go to the pico. All right, our pico is set up and running. We are taking the capture, and first let's put the key on. And that indicator is on. Oh, and guys, look at that. Do you see that? The indicator is giving a bit of a coil control. Interesting. Let me try the hazard. Check that out. And we do have a slight current draw on the coils when that happens. This is interesting. I think we have a cross in a circuit over there that's not supposed to be there. How cool is that? All right, so let me put the lights off and let's start the car. And right now we're running well, but there's something that happened over there. Let me just pause that. Oh, I missed it. I hit the space bar twice. Let's start that again. So let's start the car. Why do we have a negative current draw at the beginning? Is that interference, or is that a current draw? Guys, I think that's a current draw. Okay, so let's look in here. So right now everything looks good. We have got coil 1, 2, 3, and the fourth one is there, obviously this one. Firing order is 1, 3, 4, 2. So 1, 3, that's 4, which we don't have a trigger for it. Setup, and 2. Okay, let that keep running. So far that's okay, and that's exactly what she says. So you can see I can accelerate. There's a current limitation somewhere. Let me pause that. Is this normal? Or, well, not going to make too much of an issue of that. I'm getting lost in the details. I'm here to find out why coils are burning, and right now from my capture I can't see why. So I want to put on my hazards again right here, and I want to see what happens. Look at that. And let's pause and let's see what happens to my control lines. Yeah, look at this. Let me put the hazards off. Guys, look at this. When the hazards come on, I do get a control because we are passing the threshold of triggering. That's 1.7 volts. We are crossing the threshold of the trigger for the transistors in the coil. This is not good. That should not be there. Okay. Now I can tell you I don't like how this harness looks like in the front. I don't think this is a computer issue, but that harness is giving me a bit of a worry. And then the other thing she told me is she's popped coils twice when she's driving and 3 times when the brother is driving, and all the times it has been at night. What do you turn on at night? You turn on your lights. So let's first flash and see what happens. Oh my goodness. Check that out. Let's pause. Oh my God. Guys, we found our problem right here. These coils have been somehow, the control line is crossed with a power feed, and it has to do with the lights. So we may not even need to take this thing for a test drive. I've seen what I wanted to see, and yeah, that's not good. That will definitely heat that coil up pretty good. So you're double firing. But it looks like it's only one coil that's doing it. Or is it just that I happen to have been on that coil? Probably. So here's where I flashed again. Let's test these coils out. So what I'm going to do is now turn my lights fully on. My lights are on and off. Let's pause that. Open up here. Look at this. And all the coils were hit when I turned on the lights here. So what do you think will happen in the event that the lights are on and you indicate or turn on the hazards? What else is happening here? Let's try and hit the brake. That's the brake. The brake is also in that circuit somehow. So we've got the lights, we've got the brake. Let's try all the accessories that we can get here. Let's try our, what do you call this? The wipers. So that's the wipers going up and down. Wipers don't seem to be doing much of anything. All right, so this has to do with the lights. Let me try the horn. Horn doesn't seem to be, oh, horn is doing something. Let me pause that. There's a bit of noise in that circuit. It's just noise. Okay. All right. So let me do this. Turn on the lights. Turn on the hazards. And brake. And I want to pause. Oh. Let me put off the car. I don't want to burn those coils up. Now, let's come here and look at this. Well, as much as we have got that funky stuff happening there, it doesn't seem to be well, it is here. It did try and turn on all the coils actually. Here, you see that? These are the hazards that are doing that on the headlights, mostly. Okay, let me just go without on a test drive. Now, I won't film when she's in the car. I do not like filming my clients because of privacy. And I will tell her to do a couple of things while watching my scope. But this is very interesting. We do have a problem here. All right, we are back from our test drive. And as we were test driving, I was asking her quite a number of questions so that we can narrow this thing down. And I've come to the following conclusions. Number one, it only happens at night when she's driving. It never happens during the day. Number two, usually when she's coming to a stop or when she's on a bumpy road, that's when the coils die. And number three, it is mostly on stop and go traffic. Sometimes if she's going long distance, she will eventually burn up the coil, but she has to drive long distance than when she is on stop and go traffic. Now, as we were driving, I had her do different things to simulate some conditions, but there's something that was in my mind. When you're driving at night, the difference is you have your headlights on. So I told her to turn on her headlights and drive. And what I noticed is whenever she had her headlights on, the coils, the command line elevates. And when it elevates, it puts it very close to the threshold of triggering the coils. Then, whenever she does any electrical activity like hit the brakes or operate the window, it pushes that threshold above the firing threshold of the coils, and the coils actually begin to fire. Depending on what the load is, it can actually hold those coils on above that threshold, or there's a weird square wave that is on the coil line. It's an interference of some kind. It's not from the coil commands. There's something else that's producing a square wave, but it's leaking into the coil lines. But that signal is very tiny, and it rides on top of the baseline for the square waves of the coils. So if you turn on the coils, the turn on for the coil is much wider than that tiny square wave. But when that baseline is elevated up, it's very close to threshold such that that tiny square wave begins to also trigger the coils. So that is why we're not blowing a fuse, but we're melting the coil. It's because these coils are being either held on for too long, or they are being commanded to fire in rapid succession more than they are supposed to. All right, guys. Showing you everything that I have shown you and the explanations I've given you, I would like you to tell me. We have all the information we need. What is wrong with this car? Pause the video and figure it out. Look at the evidence and find out what's wrong with this car. So this car has a bad engine computer ground. That ground elevates when you load it up with different things. So I think it's a shared ground with other accessories, especially the headlights. So when you turn on the headlights, it loads up that ground, and the ground in the engine computer elevates. And when it elevates, it pushes the baseline for the coils very close to firing threshold. Sometimes it exceeds it and holds the coils on. Sometimes any small disturbance that appears on the coil control lines will trigger the coils. So what I want to do is we go to the wiring diagram, and I want to show you where the grounds for the engine computers are, and we're going to probe them, and then we're going to turn on the hazards. We just need to turn on the hazards, and I bet you we will see the ground line for the engine computer get disturbed. And then what I want to do is we're either going to find that ground location, or since I'm far away, I have a close to a 300-kilometer trip back, and it's going to be about 3 hours. I want to just give the engine computer an alternate ground, and then we're going to fix this later when the car is in Nairobi, because I'm not going to sleep out of Nairobi. I need to go back home. So let's interrogate the grounds for the engine computer. Back here in the wiring diagram, this is the ECU, and we have got a ground here, and the ground point is number 4. Let's go to the engine control diagram. We just want to see whether we have other grounds here. So front ECU also shares that ground, point number 4. And by the way, front ECU controls the tail lights, headlights, and hazards. So that's why we are seeing that issue. Okay, let us scroll, and we're going to see whether we have another ground. This is ground point number 4. That's the automatic computer ECU. Also shares that ground. Man, that ground is loaded. What else? Throttle valve controller shares that ground. Ignition switch, earth point. No, this does not make sense. Okay, let's talk about this. This is not correct. I'll tell you why. This is the ignition switch output. That's hot. You've got a branch here coming down here, and then it goes down to ground. No. So this is error in the wiring diagram. So this just goes to show you, when you are doing diagnosis, just because you're using the OEM information, and this is the OEM Mitsubishi diagram, do not check out your brain. They do make mistakes at times. So this is not supposed to be there. So either this line is wrong or this ground is wrong, and I think the ground is wrong. You cannot short a power feed directly to ground. Okay, let's go here. So these are the two grounds from the engine computer, 13 and 26, pin 13 and pin 26 of C17. And then I think that's it. Oh yeah, we have something else here. Oh, that's just a shielding for the knock sensor. So that ground is quite important. It carries an amount of load on it. That's why we have an issue. But for our engine computer, we just have the two grounds. So let's go to the engine computer here, and I want to see what these two grounds look like when we have this activity going on in the coil control line. All right, I have probed the engine computer grounds, and I just want you to see the condition of this computer. Look at that. Look how badly those connectors are mangled. Again and again and again. What is my mantra? Be careful who you take your car to for servicing and for repair. Look at how badly the harness has been damaged. Guys, I'm not even going to try and repair this harness. I'm going to recommend that she gets a new engine harness, and then we're going to clip it in here properly, because this is really, really bad. So there are our engine grounds. Let's go to the Pico, and I want to see what happens when we begin to command those in coils, and I want to see what will happen to those grounds. All right, we are ready to test our grounds, and first thing I want to do is to come here and put my key on, and you can see the ground is already elevating. By the way, the ground is on the red and the green. So that blue is ignition coil number 1 control, and down there on the brown we still have the coil currents. But the red and green channel are my grounds. Now, watch this. When I operate the window, look what happens to the ground. Whoa! Look at that ground. Oh, let's go back up. Wow, that is some serious ground elevation. Let's try the back window. That's going down. Look what happens when it hits down. Hit. And that is amazing. I'm going to pause there. Oh, I missed that one. So let me put it back up. Okay, that's the other window. Back window up. Let's pause that. And I'm on a 2-volt scale on the ground, and we have got 353 millivolts on that computer ground. That is no good. So we have ground elevation over there. Now let's start the car. So we're running. So far things are looking good, and I've noticed my tach isn't working correctly. Look at that. And look at our grounds. Those grounds are really messed up. You know what? I am shocked tach has stopped working, as you can see. And look what happens when I accelerate. Now let's start to load our grounds. Let's put the lights on. That's amazing. So lights are on, and let's operate the window, the driver's window. So the window's going down, boom, hits the bottom, then come back up, and we've hit the top. Let's pause that. .400 millivolts on the ground. So we are done here. We have a bad ground. So what I want to do is to temporarily ground that signal with a good ground, and then we're going to see the difference it'll make. But this is quite exciting. All right, I've put a jumper cable on both the engine ground wires, and that just goes to my main ground connection there, which goes to battery negative. So let's go back the scope and see now the final capture of this. This works. What I will do is I will just bridge the ground to a different point. All right, we're ready to take this capture. Let's first put the key on. Very nice. You can see it's still on elevation, but the elevation is not that bad. Remember, I am with a very tiny pin on both those ground wires, so this is not the best that it can be. I am grounding through my pin probe, which is not that great, but you can still see a difference. Let's now take the back two windows down. So there's this one, it's going down, boom, hits down, and look at the ground elevation, not that bad. Let's go down on the other side. Nice. Now let's bring them both up. Very good. Let's put on the lights. And you can see the elevation is controlled. We're still loading the ground, but not that much. Let's start the car. All right, so my ground now is controlled. That's with lights off, lights on. We still have an elevation on the coil line, but it's not going anywhere near where it was going before. Let's put on the hazard here. Well, I still don't like what it's doing with the coils. So this tells me that I also have a grounding issue at the coils themselves. There is a possibility that somebody has wired the headlight grounds to where the coil grounds are, because you're seeing a larger elevation on the control line than on the engine computer ground. The engine computer ground seems to have been controlled. You can see that. That's lights off, that's lights on. So what we are going to do is find out where the headlight is and also ground it to the chassis properly. But this alone, if we just fix those grounds, we will fix this problem, because it's not going to elevate our coil line anywhere near the threshold for firing, and that threshold is over 1.5 volts. We're not going anywhere near 1.5 volts. In fact, let's put the lights on and the hazards. It seems the highest it will go is when both the hazards and the lights are on. So let me pause here and let's measure our highest peak. Here is 800 millivolts. The threshold for firing the coil is around 1.5 volts. So we are safe right now, although I still don't like that. Let me fix this ground properly and then we are going to be done. So that's it for this Pajero IO. Bad engine computer grounds causing the coils to melt down. This is the same car as the Montero overseas. So let's take one last shot of our beautifully melted coil. You can see that it was oozing out from the inside. This thing got really hot. So when you see this, remember, it's not a power issue, it's not a ground issue to the coil. This is a control issue. This coil is just being held on too frequently and for too long, and it causes it to overheat. With our fixed grounds, this now should be fixed. All right, guys, until next time. I still don't like where we are. We are too high. That's in drive. Let's do a brake torque quick. That won't work. All right, let's pause and stop this car. So unfortunately, this engine control unit has been damaged. Look at this. We are crossing the threshold here and we are triggering our coils when we're not supposed to have a trigger. Unfortunately, we need either a new control unit or we need to repair this control unit. This cannot remain like this. It is what it is. Sometimes this is the way it goes. We need a new control unit for this car, so we have to come back with another one. But this car cannot go long distance because, yeah, it just will not work. And it's when the lights are on. So she either travels with the lights completely off, but can't do anything for now. All right, guys, this is the second day that I'm back here. Another 6-hour round trip. You know how there's that just sinking feeling that you have right down in your gut that tells you, you know what? You better check this thing again. I had that feeling the whole time I was driving back home. And when I slept and I woke up, it even got clearer that I should do a double check rather than buying a computer. I do not think a computer is going to fix our issue. That intuitive sense, I never ignore it, because every time I've ignored my intuition, something bad has happened. So my intuition is telling me, you know what? Check this thing again. So I've come back here and I have removed the computer and I want to take it upstairs to the lady's house and I want to open it. I just want to look in there and see what's going on. If I don't see anything wrong, we're going to come back here and we are going to test with this computer open. Now, that may sound a bit scary to you guys, but what's the worst that could happen? Damage the computer? Well, if that's the case, it is what it is. You just have to be careful. But if you're afraid of experimenting, then you will never learn anything. Sometimes we damage stuff and then we learn not to damage stuff as a result. So let me take this computer and open it, see what we see inside, and then we're going to come back here and do more testing. But down in my gut, I really sense that we don't need a computer. All right, I'm back from the house and I've inspected this computer. Took 2 photos and I'll show you what I found. The first thing that caught my eye is this. Something was done here that doesn't look too pleasing. Let's zoom that in to 100% and you can see someone attempted a repair on this IC. But this IC has nothing to do with ignition, so that's a distraction right now. I'm going to leave that alone. Our ignition circuits is on this side of the board, and so are our grounds. So that's the main computer ground and our ignition circuits are here. Let's go to the second photograph, and here you can see A13 and A26. These are your 2 grounds that are connected outside. Now you can see they're connected to the same ground pad, which means out there, those are redundant grounds and they're there for safety reasons. In case you lose one, you have the other. That way you have some safety so that you don't just lose both grounds and leave your computer hanging. Because if you disconnect a ground on a working computer, you can actually fry that computer. It's not good for it. Right here, these 4 pins, 1, 2, 3, 4, those are our coil control lines. So let's follow them down here, and they come here. They bypass these diodes. D is a diode. So they just kiss those diodes and bypass them and come to these Qs. And Qs are transistors. And why do we have diodes here? I honestly don't know. What I did test is that this side is a ground. These 4 pins for the diode, they are connected to the ground pad and there's no resistance. So there's a good connection to ground here. Where these go, I do not know, the other side of the diode, but I'm curious. I will test that in the vehicle. So here we have got our transistor array, and I mapped it. Q37 is coil 1, 39 is coil 2, 41 is coil 3, and 43 is coil number 4. And you can see there's another transistor array here, but they are not related. They are not connected at all to this one. And the base of this transistor here, you can see it goes under here. It doesn't touch this transistor, and nothing here on this array touches that. So I don't know what this one is. I'm only interested in this array here. So on this transistor, you've got the base, you've got a collector and emitter. The collector should be the one that's collecting that 2.5 volts that turns on the coils. And that 2.5 volts is passed onto the emitter, which goes to the pin of the output when the base is turned on. So here, you can see it goes here, comes under this transistor, and it hits this resistor. And these are protective resistors. You never want to go directly to the microprocessor from your driver. You hear that, Mercedes? Mercedes have a bad habit of connecting ICs directly to output pins of their computers. Very stupid design. I don't know why they do that. That's why it's very easy to damage Mercedes ECUs. And guys say that, oh, it's because those ECUs are sensitive. No, they're badly designed. You should never do that. So once you see the protective resistors, then it means the other side of this resistor is your microprocessor. And if you follow this one, it comes here, and this one comes here, but this other one should show us where it goes. So this one comes under this transistor, hits the protective resistor, and then we have that line coming around town and coming to this. So this IC is your coil controller IC. This IC here is the main brain for the engine computer, and this one is the one for the transmission control. It's interesting that they have a separate controller outside the microprocessor for the engine for the coils. It's a very strange design. I've never seen this before, but yeah, this is what happens. So let's go back here. What I've done is I've tested all these. These transistors are fine. The ground is continuous to that pin. There's nothing seems to be wrong in here. And when I put 1.5 volts here, it turns on all these drivers properly. So I'm going to look away from this computer. Let's go back to the car, and I want to test first of all that we have a good ground here. Then I'm also curious just to test what these are. I don't know what they are, but I want to see that the square wave coming from these drivers is exactly the same square wave that's going outside. If it is, then we have an external issue to this computer. All right, let's go back to the car and set up. All right, there's my computer, and I have put it over a towel. Now I am aware that if I do anything stupid here, I can easily fry this thing because my brain is right there exposed. So you just have to use your head and be cautious. So that's my transistor array there, Q37 to Q39. And this is my diode array, D48 to D49 up there. Now remember I said I don't know what these do. Well, we're going to find out, because I know one side is a ground. I don't know what the other side is. So we're going to see just now. So let's start the car. Now on the blue, on the scope, I am still connected to coil number 1 control under the hood. So that's what you're seeing on channel 1, which is the blue. And channel 2, which is the red, is what I have in my hand. So the first thing is, let's test what we know. We know that this is our ground here. This is supposed to be a ground. And as you can see, it's a ground. And I want you to note that both of them are elevated. Okay, my ground is elevated and my coil control baseline is also elevated. Right now the lights are off. So let me come here and turn the lights on. Oh man, look at that, it's elevating even more. Lights are on. So, is it elevated here as well? Yes, you can see it's elevated just as much. And there's some disturbance on that line. I don't know what it's coming from. But what is this other line here? So let's see what this is. Oh, I've gone out of range. I'm on a 10-volt scale. Let me touch it again. So that tells me that's 12 volts. Why do we have 12 volts here with a diode? I don't know. I don't make them. I don't break them. I only diagnose them. But that's good to know. But this ground needs to be good so that our baseline for our coil control is good. And this is coil number 1 control, and I can test it by just coming here. There you can see. So whatever we're seeing here is what's going out on the pins. Now, we have an elevated ground in our engine computer. Question is, do we have an elevated ground on our ground pin? This one is our ground pin here. Let's touch it. And guys, look at that. We do have an elevated ground on our ground pin. Oh yeah. So my intuition was correct. We're not changing this engine computer. This bad ground is not coming from within the engine. It's coming from externally. Now I have fixed my ground, but why do I still have that? And right now the engine is trying to do something. I don't know, but that's a distraction right now. Guys, we have an issue with our ground coming into this computer. So, you know what? I need to check my body ground. Let's do that. Let's check this body ground of this car, because there's something funny happening here. All right, let's check this body ground. Give you an idea where I am. That's the steering wheel. That's my engine computer on the footwell there. And this is the door. And we're going to check our body ground right at this bolt here for the door stop. So let me check here. Look at our Pico. Guys, look at that. We have a bad body ground. Ah, come on. For real though? I've wasted time all these days. Oh, not really wasted time. I've got my diagnostic correct. We have a bad body ground. And guys, this is a lesson why you should never, ever take your grounding from any other point on the car other than battery negative. The reason I am able to see this with my leads is because my scope is referenced to battery negative. I know Euro cars, they hide their battery negative under the seats, under the trunk, in weird places. Rip out panels if you have to. Charge your client extra if he has to. I mean, he's the one who bought a car with a hidden battery. That should not be on you. But always use battery negative. Had we been attached to any other body point, we would have missed this. So everything attached to this body and grounded to this body has a bad ground. That is so cool. Let's go to the battery negative and see what's happening there. All right, here we are on battery negative, and I've been lifting this thing and connecting here without even looking at this. Look at this. Look at this. This conductor is actually moving inside there. Can you see that? And this is where my grounds are. So I am properly grounded on my scope, but this cable, oh my gosh. Yeah, so what I want to do is to come here, and I am going to take a reading on this. So the heavy gauge wire is for the starter, and the lighter gauge wire is for everything else. So let me probe this here. If I can get my, yeah, there it is. So what I want to see is if I have a voltage drop between my negative and my cable. And I think I do, because I'm loading this circuit up when I turn on the lights, and that's when everything just elevates. So let us go to the Pico and see what we have on the red channel. But this is ridiculous, man. All right, let's see what we have. And guys, look at that. We are elevated still. Let's turn on the lights here. So you can see we are elevated on the computer, but at the battery, as much as that cable looks funky, that cable is actually carrying a very good ground. So there's a missing cable somewhere on the body of this vehicle, and it's causing havoc for everything. So here's what we're going to do. This car's wiring is in such bad shape, I am not going to waste time looking for a ground cable, but there's a ground cable missing, and that ground cable is supposed to come from battery negative to body ground, to a body point somewhere. So why didn't I do this? Let me just take a heavy gauge cable, and I am going to ground the body to battery negative. This will stop all this problem of the ground, because I just need my body to ground correctly. So let me show you where I will do it. Let's go outside. So right here we have a nice point here. So we can take a ground strap and strap it here. But we need to test first if we have a bad ground here. If you have a bad ground here, then we'll strap it there. If you have a good ground here, then we have to strap it somewhere on the body of the car. But this is connected to the strut tower. I am sure if I strap here, we should be fine. But we don't guess, we test. So let me put a crocodile clip right here and test this point for good ground, and then we'll make a decision. All right, right at the injector driver next to it on the bolt, that's where we're taking our reading. Let's go see if we have a bad or a good ground here. Okay, let's put the key on and start. And you can see my injector driver does not have a good ground. Okay, so there I'm putting my lights off and on, so that's off, then put it on. You can see that's elevating. Beautiful. And those spikes you're seeing there are actually from the injector driver. So those spikes, it's the injector driver itself that is not even grounding correctly. Wow, this is such a nightmare for this car. No wonder she's been having a weird electrical problems. Even her tach misbehaving, I'm pretty sure it's because of a bad ground. Let's get a ground strap, fix that thing up, and then we're going to come back here and see if this is a fix. Okay, let's take out our bolt so we can measure it. And before we do that, we're just going to drive it in and out. And we can take it out. That way we clean the threads and we make good contact in here. So it actually looks good. And now we are going to use this to measure the type of stud that we should use on this end. Alright, so those are our eyelets. I have chosen an appropriate eyelet for the injector driver side and for the battery side. And then what we're going to do is to take the heaviest gauge wire I have. I don't have much. This is what I have for now. And then I'm going to use multiple strands of these so that we can get low resistance, because this is not enough. It's nowhere near enough. I need to get something that looks thick, almost like the other cable that's on the battery. So what we're going to do is to go to the battery and measure how much we need, and then we're going to create that cable, crimp it properly, and then go back, put it in, and do our tests. Alright, I have done my repair. So my battery terminal is very tight right now, and I've got 2 ground straps here. And what I noticed is my terminal here is not the best because there's a bracket here, and this bracket is bolted down to the body. I wanted to ground the body directly, so instead I have chosen that location over there. So you've got the strut tower and my ground points are coming here. So let's go and see if that is going to help. We're still taking our reading right here from the injector driver. Now this location I know is going to be noisy. This is basically a high power transformer, and it is going to produce a lot of noise. And in fact, that noise we were seeing, those small waves we were seeing, interruption in our waveform for the control, is actually coming from the injector driver over here. So after seeing how hashy it was, that's its source, and it's mirroring on that driver wire for the coils. But now let's see if this is going to help. Okay, our picoscope is running, and we're going to start this car now. And beautiful, look at that. So the injector driver is still hashy, that's on the red, but look at what we have on the control line. That is brilliant. Now we are fully grounding that signal. The lights are off. Let's put the lights on. That's when the loading was happening most of the time. So look at that. We are fixed. Amazing. That's all it needed. So bad body ground causing everything to have a wonky ground, and it was causing signals, and the biggest price that was paid was the coils. And the coil is not because of the grounds at the coils themselves, it's because of the control line at the ECU was not getting a full ground. So next I want to just come here, and we're going to take one final measurement here on that bolt, and I want to see that we have quieted down. Remember, lights are on. The other thing is, when the hazards were on, let me put the hazards on here. When the hazards were on, we were also getting an interruption, but look at that. Now it is super clean. So let me get that red channel, and we're going to test the body ground, but it's already fixed. I can see that from there. All right, back on our bolt here, red channel, and let's touch. Nice. And the lights are on, the hazards are on, and that is what we have. So we release and we touch again. Beautiful. This car is fixed. 1998 Pajero IO, eating ignition coils because of a bad body ground. And remember, always reference battery negative for your diagnostic tests. Again, I will repeat, if I was anywhere else apart from battery negative, would have missed this problem. Another one for the books. It took me 2 days, 12 hours trip round in total, but we are done, and this car will never eat an ignition coil again for as long as it lives. Until next time.